Yes, that's fine. We just need your voice.
Okay, just give me 1 minute.
Okay. Francis, if you're not ready, I can go ahead.
I was already talking while muted.
Oh, okay. All right.
So we say that because we know that we have new members that join us every week, we always find it necessary to go to refresh ourselves with the rules. So the guest speaker will have to speak one at a time. Ask that during the time when our guest speaker is not here, other participants will take notes, so you can easily identify what you would like to talk about. And all questions shall, as a matter of principle, be addressed to the moderator. That's how you to ask a question. And we ask that participants have to be polite, respectful, and avoid foul language. In fact, the word itself and mutual respect is a distinct quality of Southern Cameroons and the parliamentary system, and one that we all see here. After the speakers are through, the moderator will take a number of questions in specified order. Participants are required to put up minutes and to put it down after the advanced motion. To enable others have a chance, ask that you ask only one question. And all microphones shall remain muted when the speaker is on the floor. So unless you're talking, the answer please with microphones. If someone has asked a question you had in mind, please be courteous enough to give the chance for someone else. That will save them all of us. And then each speaker will have 1 minute to ask a question. That means the question must be direct and concise. And then the guest speaker will answer a cluster of questions, usually 5 at a time. Now at the end of the day, if there's time, that's when people will have opportunities to make observations and comments. So if you have any observations or comments, please don't make them bring questions and answer in time. And then lastly, no bullying, no insult. Anyone using the chat room and using it is sent out. Thank you, as and the young ambassador as one as well.
More power to them. Thank you. Thank you for reading the meeting rules, Francis, Comrade Francis, the co-moderator of the town hall. I see a hand is up. We would, unfortunately, we are against time, but Comrade 4, just keep your hand up. We'll come back to you, unless that's ground zero. We will come back to you. So we will call on our elder statesman, Powerful Kimbang, to do us the honors of introducing our special guest speaker for today. Powerful, if you're there, the floor is yours.
Thank you, moderator, and thank you, Ambassador of Good Faith. I've been given an honor to introduce someone who's a fighter in our struggle to become a very good friend, very good brother. And without taking much time, I also give my honor to our little granddaughter who was sacrificed for our cause, and I hope that it's a tipping point for our struggle. The person I am about to introduce needs no introduction, but I have to do it. He is no one else but Professor Patrick Siakam. is currently a writer, professor, and head of Department of Africana Studies at Stony Brook University, New York. He is also an author of several novels, essays, and manga. He was arrested and jailed in maximum jail for 21 days by the Cameroonian government for touring the northwest and southwest region of Amazonia in 2017 and expelled from he is currently and officially by the Cameroonian government in exile. So it is my distinguished honor to introduce Professor Patrice Gana, whom you all know was in Lowell and march on the streets holding hands with the mayor of Lowell and chief of Lowell to demonstrate for the liberation of the Federal Republic of Amazonia. Professor Patrice Gana, please.
Yes, thank you very much, bro. I think things happen and at the same time one needs to have a place to talk about them in such a way that one will not be ashamed 1 or 2 or 10 years after the event. And I vividly remember when I came to Massachusetts when we were walking on the streets, you know, coming from my background, which is practical. You know, you probably not read newspapers or the media, practical media. It was quite a shock. And so people were saying it was a bad idea that I was arrested because I've been radicalized. I still think about it sometimes, and I wonder what can be as more radical than to stand for our own daughter who was murdered the way Carolina was. What can be more radical than what our mother, her grandmother did when she was blessed? To give her the honor that even the soldiers of Cameroon don't have. What can be more radical than to do what the woman did, who took the first stone and threw at the soldier and the gendarme, transforming the long history of our fears into the history of courage? I mean, honestly, what can be more radical than the policeman who was bystander of the lynching of his colleague and who willingly decided not to shoot and not to increase the number of dead people that day? You know, those are small signs of dignity and of humanity that are presented as radical, and yet they are radical because they happen in a context where we basically lost our sense of humanity. And so thinking, just come back to our meeting there. You remember you gave me a medal, and I have taken my computer and showed it here. It's one of the proudest medals I've ever had.
The state gave you a medal, not me.
No, you. And Americans of Massachusetts gave me a medal. And the state gave me a degree as well. And after having walked through the streets of Lowell, I was involved in a campaign here, and I saw what it means to actually work for nothing. So you can see that my gratitude is close to tears because I'm so happy to be here. Thank you very much. Thank you for having me again, and thank you for allowing me really to be part of my here. And I always felt that maybe you don't know when I finished my PhD in 1998. That's quite a long time now. I wanted to go back to Cameroon but to teach in Buea. So I landed in Buea in 1999 and I went to university on campus. There was everywhere signs. I was already until I died. There were signs everywhere. No meeting allowed here. don't look into that out here. So I'm sure you know those signs. But it shocked me a lot. And I mention it because, of course, from all the videos we get, you know yourself that Pidgin is now the national language of Amazonia. So, and it's going to stay that. That's how a national language is decided upon. It's not through vote. It is for the people suffering and sacrifices that the language becomes national. Because we own it. And the university is going to be teaching as well. The university way was bad. You see. So it is a tremendous evolution, I think. And I'm thinking of my friend, Peter Makuta was dedicating his life to have a drama of painting all those kinds of things here in the US. So thank you very much for having me. In terms of technicality, I simply have two maps I would like to show. So if it is possible to have my screen for a brief moment. And then okay, you are now co-host, so you can share. Excellent. So let me organize that first, and then anyway, so let's share. How do you do share? Since I don't share screen, there we go. So have the map open up, and then you can just click on share screen, and then you fill up the map. Yeah. So when okay, I see. Okay, excellent. You see, we all always need those kinds of introductions. Do you have the map now?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. So I think one of the things, the first, before I even talk about this map, who already say that I am a teacher by profession. So means, and I'm a writer. Actually, my calling is writing. And I always understood writing as something that you share. Means your thoughts are in your mind. The writing is that you actually listen to somebody else to understand them. And you have characters to make sure that somebody who actually cannot understand concepts can understand what is happening to a story. So all thing that our parents, grandparents used to do, meaning to tell a story for you to understand the moral principle. So that is writing for me. The bottom line being that you break it down. So instead of saying, for instance, relative, the theory of relativity is this and that, you have two characters, one sitting in one train, another one sitting in another one. And people will understand what it means to be in different trains. And they will get the theory without having the physical or mathematical details of it. So you broke it down. That is the way I look at conflict. That is the way I look at human relationship. That is the way I look at what is happening in Southwest and Northwest, which is to say that I break it down for me, myself, to understand, and for people to understand. And the easiest way to break something down is certainly to have a map. But also, one way is to have simple questions. Very simple questions. This is a map you all know, but the thing is that most Francophone Cameroonians do not know this map. Most Francophone Cameroonians don't know where those cities are located. In other words, we are bombarded every single day with videos, etc., since now 4 years. But most people cannot locate those videos on the map. So therefore, it's very difficult to understand, to answer the question, where is the fighting happening? So to have a certain rationale of fighting, yet if you don't have a rationale of fighting, you will not understand what is going on. Because you will simply think it's chaotic, it is people killing each other, as one says here in the West, black on black crime, or black people are killing each other, it's another civil war, etc., etc. So let's have peace. Let us simply forget it, it is brutal, chaotic. And I'm not going to repeat it very often, but you know what I'm talking about. It's essential for somebody to have a rationale of what is happening, for it to make sense. for people to understand that what is happening is indeed the struggle for the liberation of the people. And when you say the people, you need to say that the people is connected to the land. What is that land? Before you even get to history, that is another matter. So what is that land? In other words, what is the location of the places where the land is happening? So why is it, for instance, that people still talk about schools, but only show pictures of Korea or sometimes Bamenda? So why is it that when people talk about schools, kids going to school, or for instance, Caroline was going to school. Exactly, she was going to school, but she was going to school in Bamenda. So the question is, where? Right? So now, can she go to school and say, if it was in Bali? So people will not understand the distinction between Bali and Morocco, for instance. The fact that Morocco is very close to Douala, and that is basically superior. So in other words, a visual representation of the struggle is essential, and that's why I have this map for people somehow, mostly Francophones, but even in general, to understand what I call the distinction between bush walk and city walk. In other words, the first thing that I looked at, because I myself came to Amazonia, to the northwest and southwest very late in my life, so I came there for the first time in just 1999. So before I'd never been there, and so I traveled around because I wanted to see, and also my wife being English speaking, I wanted her to see a place where people speak English. So we traveled around for us to see that, and so the first thing, of course, is that the major cities are very close to the Francophone part. So when you look at Bamenda, you look at Buea, they're actually enclaves of Francophone lands. It is a couple of kilometers only. So it means from that starting point, it's very easy to give an illusion of continuity, of peace, of a government that's running, etc. You can easily concoct that story. And because Bamenda is going to have people and Buea is going to have people, etc. But now if you start talking about Whenever you start talking about etc. Akwaya, so you realize that you are moving into land, into bush, into villages. That is where the war happens. So if one understands it, one understands that there is a certain dynamic that the relation between the bush, between the village and the city is essential. That the relation between the war in the village and the war in the city is essential. That the militarization of the village is what gives courage in the city. And even gives an idea of why it is that Buea and Bamenda are still somehow an institution of peace. When villages are emptied, when the villages are in situations of war, when the villages are basically uninhabitable. So where is the fighting happening is important for us to underline. And when you look at it, you also get tactile also so that you even understand why it should give hope. Because it is in the institution here, the villages are there to actually, they are the backbone of everything, really, even literally. But you must realize that the location of that Amazonia is really blessed to have villages as the backyard of the cities. That the villages are so well located that it is basically possible to get at them. Of course, one can say Nigeria is here, is the proper backyard, but the villages are really the real backyard. So when you look at it that way, you realize that the vision of victory is possible because it is rooted in the very location of the place where the war is happening. So it is not a fantastic presentation of the situation, but it is simply a factual analysis of how things are being played out. So that you realize that in 1 or 2 years, it was easy and very possible and really manageable to have the cities, I wanted to say strangulated, but to have the whole of Amazonia in the war. So, and it is a beautiful deception, I think, of what is and what is possible. And at least from my standpoint, from what I see from outside, I see the story of back then in the 70s and 80s, one used to say peasants. But now villages because of bush, because of the concept of peace. And also, bush war has a very specific history that will bring us back to people like Spain, Kagame, etc. Even though in this specific case you don't have the central command, but the concept is still there. Without the central command, you still have the concept of bush war.
Sorry. Can you kick them out? Did you get them? Yes, I think the
I have removed him. Don't worry about it.
all right. Sorry about that, Prof.
Just one minute. Would it be please that we shouldn't have picked anybody else unless we know the name of the person from the chat room? Just because.
Yes, please. No, I will monitor the waiting room. I'll be the only person bringing people in from the waiting room.
Okay.
So it's this, I think we can interrupt for 1 minute or 1 second, but it's kind of fluid, so there. So that is the first thing I wanted to mention. The second is, for those who follow my page, you may have noticed that from the very beginning, I insisted on the ethnic quality of the conflict. I say quality. Quality is a positive term because one cannot at the same time want to have defense of other cultures, etc., and look down on our own ethnicity. So it is a contradiction I cannot deal with. So therefore, I say quality. So now on the other hand, it's impossible to have a conflict, particularly a civil war, without having it fall into an ethnic battle. So you cannot avoid it because the backbone of the civil war is the population. It's anthropology. Bush war is the bush, so it's the village. If you want, so the village has a quality of having kept our traditions alive. So it means it is from that backbone that any substantial battle can be waged, any engagement can be fought, and anything of substance can be mobilized. It is really from our ethnic background that such a thing is possible. So at the very beginning, it was very outrageous because from my standpoint, it wasn't really. But from the standpoint of Cameroonians, of Cameroons, it was a shock. The reason being that the Cameroonians have inherited the vision of the state that comes from France, where you have a conception that is not communal, so you don't talk of communities. In France, they don't accept that people are black, so the constitution is done, things like that, you are not supposed to mention your ethnicity, things like that. So in any case, from the standpoint of the community, it was a shock, so I was attacked by it often. We talked of genocide, etc. If you did not, it is not important. But in any case, for me, it was tactically necessary to clearly define who are the fighting or the warring parties. In other words, to answer the question, who is fighting? And I actually remember the first talk I had in Massachusetts where I started that analysis somewhere. It wasn't very much fleshed out, but I needed, I think, 3 years to have a clarity of what is going on. It may have shocked lots of people, but not me, that the soldiers who were engaged in Amazonia, in the northwest and southwest, from the very beginning were all Francophone, French people. So, of course, it did not shock me because my arrest was quite early. So when I was arrested, I knew the people who kept me, who even cooked my food, etc. All of them came from, were all Francophone, were all from one tribe, they were all group. So clearly set, and they spoke with each other in one mother tongue, in their mother tongue as well. So as such, I knew myself that I was the captain of the tribe. And that I could do nothing without that tribe actually willing I would do that. So maybe from that standpoint, when I was released, I remember my first interview already January 2018. I said that, and people were outraged because I had a huge sympathy, and that is the first moment when I had a split in people who were supporting me, particularly amongst the groups. So where one group said you cannot speak like that, that immediately was censored, and and finally, I needed to have a second thought. But then people came and I discussed, they said why, and I came to the point of saying, no, that is exactly the case of the enemy. That is the case of the enemy because the enemy doesn't have any sympathy. The enemy has a certain sense of security. He knows that he is kept inside the shadow of the state. Is covered by a certain ideology of the state, and he can actually act in total impunity, knowing that people will not even listen to you if you say that this is the end. In other words, if a woman is raped, people are firstly going to listen to the man and say, okay, why was she well dressed, etc. They will not listen to her in the first place. So that is what happens in general in the community. So that is the situation in which I was somehow, and so I started observing things that were random during the first year of the conflict. I was arrested 1 year after I was started. So during the first year of the conflict, I was noticing that what is happening here, that all the soldiers who are committing all those acts is French. And I cannot forget that the Cameroon army is bilingual. So Cameroon is, I don't need to insist on that, is supposed to have a national army, and that national army is supposed to be bilingual. So if then the state wanted to have peace, they will likely do something like the one that the Americans do. So they will send English-speaking soldiers to Amazonia to pull off people. So my first shock was that they actually went the other way. They did not send English-speaking soldiers in 2016 to fraternize, to talk to people, to say, hey, calm down, it's not a big deal. No, they sent francophone soldiers in the first one. So it was to crack down. And it increased, from 2017 to 2020. It was clear to anybody. You just have to look at videos, you just have to look at, the list of news. You simply have to, we are talking about thousands of, material here. It's 90% francophone. That is a shock to, and I think it should be a shock to anybody. But when you look at the history of colonial conflicts in Africa in general, the colonial army considered exactly that. I'm not going to go in tactical maneuvers. I'm simply going to talk about the sociology of the soldiers. For instance, in Cameroon, when Cameroon was, French Cameroon, the soldiers were invested in fighting UPCs and all. They, in general, came from the Congo, from Dahomey, from Chad, mostly from Chad. So they did not have any possibility of patronizing the population because they came to pack down. So that is the basic assumption. And it runs down until, from the French, from 1916 until, 1960. To the German before, when the Askari, it was also the same thing. The Askari did not come from, Cameroon. It came from other German colonies and from Togo specifically. They come to pack down on Cameroonians. So it's a colonial tactic. So it's shared by all colonial powers. In general, they will not release people from the place where they are having conflict. So it answers the question, who is actually fighting? So it's obvious from the beginning, DRC is fighting against, I would say, Anglophones, what he calls, and he's still called secessionists, separatists, etc. But in general, in the choosing of the soldiers, it's clear that he was fighting against Anglophones because in the body of his army, you did not have, English-speaking. I'm talking about the body of the army that's investment in the field. So going from there, it is equally important to understand who is the other side, because the war is between two parties. So who are the francophones fighting? It is clear that looking at the organization of the battalions, etc. You can ask the question: is it mostly of people from the north, Hausas, for instance, were invested in more in cities in the West. They were called Mafia back then, and because they were not speaking French easily, and they mostly came from Sahara, Sugar, Kwai. So they came really from extreme north. So and they were invested in particular. As such, they went down. They had face masks, and so in our own mother tongue, they are really known to be totally brutal and to have face masks and to not speak French. So that's the 60s. So the same tactics is used here, and so you can exclude those northerners because you don't see them invested in Amazonia. You can clearly, account that you have it in top of America, you will have it up of Bassa, but mostly you have people from south, from center and east. The Bulu as I was saying. And the reason is also tactical. Is when you look at the language organization of what is called Cameroon, it is a part of Cameroon in general, where people are not bilingual, or will tend not to be bilingual. Because the northerners, one part of the north was actually, you have been a part of Amazonia, because it was west of the road and it went to Nigeria. So in other words, the northerners they tend to speak the region as well. So they are quite bilingual between Nigeria, etc. So they are very close to Amazonia in that area. The Bamileke anyway, as well know, you have a large population in Amazonia, so therefore they have a situation of population in those groups. And the Cameroons, certainly, and Sawa, don't even need to argue about it. You have a strong Sawa population in the southwest and southwest littoral, regions. But the social group that is totally francophone that will actually be only francophone the group. So looking at the history of military, colonial military warfare, you understand that they are the ones who are most foreign to the region of the West. And as such, they are also the ones who are likely to commit atrocities you will have never seen, kill a baby, burn because they have no attachment to the region. They simply will have no feeling and do not understand. And the humans do not see any connection between themselves and the population they have in front of them. And that is a colonial disposition, military disposition. I did publish a couple of books on those things. I'm not going to put those files here, but understand that it is totally colonial disposition of military warfare. So the consequence of that disposition is atrocities like the war against Carolina, or the burning of the torch of grandmothers, of grandfathers, random killing, shooting houses, those kinds of things. They are the continuity of the colonial disposition. So I simply have two questions for you today. The first was, where is the fighting happening? And as such, I want to establish a distinction between, on the one hand, bush war, and on the other hand, city war. So those two. And I also wanted to ask the question, who are the fighting parties? And so I wanted to have that clarity somehow in our mind, or at least in mind. And because those two questions also help us understand why the modernity of the military is a systematic issue, and why it actually cannot change. Why it can only change with the independence of Amazonia. So I'm not expecting the military to change, because tactically or even strategically, they are in fact the top of colonial history. And as such, the only exit option that we have is social trap. The only exit option that one has that will actually be the only option that is there, that will restore the dignity of both people, of both parties, is really independence. And then after that, one can see further, one can look further, one can elaborate the services of the community, not people. So that is somehow what I wanted to happen to I felt I can pull up this number. And I see one Adam having a hand raised. I'm happy to answer your question.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Patrice Ndanang, for that presentation. And thank you for helping us appreciate. Maybe some of us didn't even appreciate the importance of what you have described as the backbone of our liberation struggle. And maybe we haven't given as much credit to the rural areas, and understanding that the bigger cities that are really close to La République are just being used as props by La République to give the international community the impression that the fighting is not going on, or it's not as severe as it is. We also appreciate the understanding or the references to people like Mussolini and Kagame, who also fought what you described as bush wars. Those are also lessons for us. What we do, the Secretariat will take questions in clusters so that it is easier for people to ask multiple questions, and then you could answer them in a series. We usually take like 5 questions together. If you want to jot them down, it makes the flow, easier than taking one question at a time. So I will call on the Secretariat or any of the other members thereof to, if they have anything. If not, we will then open and ask members. If you have questions either on what Professor Ndanang has just presented or on other areas of curiosity to you want to ask him, just raise your hand and the Secretariat would take questions and present to Prof. If we have only one hand up for now, we are going to take that. Alan, go ahead with your question. Oh, what's going on?
Prof, thank you so much for coming to us today. I mean, your work is going to for the most part. I think my question is to we're very knowledgeable and understanding of what it is that we're going through, how we got here, and where we're heading to. I think my question is how what can we do to further educate what we will call French Cameroon, and of course, again, the struggle is not against it's against the system, the tyranny system that's in that particular location. How do we educate, let's say, Francophone in general to understand what French Cameroon is? Because up to now, as you notice, in all the other 8 regions of Cameroon,
Record.
what can you say, outcry from outreach as to what is going on now? Yes.
Recording. Record what I'm saying.
Videos to further the issue. Recording, right? So this is something that we are missing as a Southern Cameroon in terms of putting our case before the family is going on, or the deliberate acts of all the Francophones that they just don't care what is going on in those 2 regions. Otherwise, who has been anything in Garua, Marua, Mapusa, Douala, nothing as in terms of the protest, nothing major because of the problem.
Okay.
That's my question.
All right. Thanks, Alan. We have another hand up. That is Chia John. Comrade Chia John, go ahead. Unmute yourself, Comrade John.
for your analysis with the critical attention, and I really think that yeah, you have actually presented the way that even most of us and the whole report which has been written about Cameroonians don't actually get that academic analysis, but so my interest has been 4 years now that the war is very active. You have tried to a particular tribe, and I think from your analysis, it's very logical for somebody to do that conclusion as you have done. I want to believe that Cameroonians and people don't have the problem as two individuals. These Cameroonians don't have problems, many Cameroonians have individuals, but when it comes to political conception of this political divide of Cameroon, no matter how one side tries to take the other, there is still that lingering understanding that society being defended. I think, for example, like what just happened in Buddha, I have French Cameroonian friends that I grew up with as friends, and we actually grow like brothers. But when it comes to issues like that, we always have that little like, no matter how much I try to the Cameroonian identity and the peoples and all of that, and the acknowledge I will say young. There's two after that you're saying it's wrong, but what you are saying about identity and all of that, you don't understand the identity. So I'm really happy for you that you are in the past. Like I said, people tell attention to everybody on social media and all of that. So my interest is that in 4 years, what is the international community? Because
Yeah.
we look at the case of Rwanda.
Comrade Chair, we are taking questions now. You have been going on, but you're not asking your questions. We will come to comments later.
My question is, what is the international community to move and talk to giving that example? I know you are very diplomatic. Maybe not very well, but I know that you know quantify the number of what is happening. What is actually happening that was impression that this bloodshed of our community is going to consequences. And secondly, as academicians, I know that this position or whatever on and goes down to say everything that is in this community. So what do you think that the average Cameroonian are willing to do? Those are my 2 areas of interest that I would like to know. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So I think you've taken 3 questions so far. Let us squeeze in 2 more, Prof, and then you would answer them in a series. Let's take Jojo, and then we'll come to IBM. Jojo, go ahead. Jojo, are you there?
Yeah, I'm there. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Professor Daniel. Thank you very much. My question is, what's your motivation or what's your interest in doing this in an detriment of the relationship with the local patrons? As I'm following what you're saying, so objective, and you see it as a base. What's motivating you?
Thank, thank you for that very direct question, Jojo. Now let's take IBM, and then Festus and Etasi will come to you in the second round of questions. So IBM, ask your question, then we'll let Prof answer the question so far.
Thank you for giving me the floor. Professor Ghana, first of all, I would like to thank you for coming to speak to us today. I am a huge fan. My wife and I follow you religiously. And I would like also to say congratulations on your new book. So my question is pretty simple and direct about France. You know, we can all see that the war is becoming difficult on La Republique du Cameroon, and we are actually very soon going to be defeated. Is it going to be a time when you think we'll see the French forces coming to help La Republique? Do you think that will ever happen?
Thank you, Comrade IBM. Prof, the floor is yours, then we'll take a second set of questions. Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's easier for me to start with, because it's quite the direct question here. What is my motivation? What's my interest? My interest, I have no interest really. I think I would say that interest is not part of my own natural, because I don't do without any interest. I know interest. Because interest is quite direct there, like money, so I would say that that I have no interest. And from that point of view, I would say I work, I invest myself in the basis that I will invest in page for freedom of one person of the group. Since I also started, I would say my teaching is 2005 when students were arrested. I started it for what I had all those youngsters were arrested. I was so involved in back and forth and actually the concerns that was doing. The first really long made in 2008. And then going forward until now, I've been half my life more of it dedicated to fighting for causes where many of my friends will say they are lost and but at the end we can win. So I would say I have no interest but simply conviction that each time humanity is family or something. And I simply cannot say now I've done something. So it sounds quite large or bad, but it's quite simple in my case. Really. I don't think that much about it. So regarding, I'm going to come to what Alan asked. What can we do to educate French Cameroon? The first thing is, you see, my presentation was based on two simple questions. I think it is the way I proceed, or it is how I get to write. So having to break it down into have simple questions, to have answers to those questions, like a child. Why is the sky blue? So then you have to find an answer to that. Why is it not raining yesterday? So you have to find an answer to that very simple question. So if you take a very simple question, I think most Amazonian South Cameroonians, West Cameroonians evolved on all those issues. Even the issue of naming yourself, they evolved. Even the issue of federation evolved. The issue of independence evolved. Many of you, if you know that yourselves, were for independence only, and many were in their lifetime for union of Cameroon, of the whole of Cameroon, and they came on very late to the realization that independence is the key. And if I go through my own conversation with all my friends, it is clear that many actually even did not believe that independence was the key. So you had lots of issues with killing, you had lots of issues about injustice, about marginalization, you had lots of issues about mistreatment, about lack of dignity, respect, etc. So you had a long list, but independence tended not to be on top of those. So now, flip the coin, look at the francophone. Many francophones were agreeing on marginalization is not good, justice is not good, mistreatment is a lack of rule, nothing else is actually good. You will have a common agreement there. And most of them will not tell you that they are not for independence. And the reason being that many Amazonians actually feel very late to understand themselves, even as Amazonians. I actually remember talking to some of my friends who were, as we see, Anglophons, and they actually refuse to be called Amazonians. And I'm talking about people of good standing and who are amongst the proud sometimes. And they will say, no, I'm not Amazonian, I'm sorry, Cameroonian. And I'm not Amazonian, and it means a lot. So it essentially means that the clarity on Amazon on independence is not there. And the moment it is there, that moment will have a discussion. So in other words, if one says, what do you want? Very simple question. The answer is, I want independence. Because you have a different power, then the power you respect it. It may be smaller, but that power will be more integrated to your goal. Phrase differently. When, Representative Riva made his speech in 2016, he talked about those who want to break Cameroon. That is the sentence. I was in Paris, last week, and I talked to Francophones, and so they were all for Amazonia, etc. And then I said, okay, I really agree that we break Cameroon. All of them said, no, we don't want that. You see, so then you have lost them too. But you've gained other friends. The hope, of course, that you have is, in terms of culture, is that you hope to have an theater. But my own conviction is that to gain independence, you don't need to have an theater group. You need to have few people who are dedicated to the goal, and the rest is going to follow suit if you win. So the clarity of your goal is going to make you have friends. But if you are first in your goal, then you will not win confidence at all. You need to know what you want is independence full stop. So then later on we'll see how it will work. It can work, it doesn't work, who knows? But that's not our business for now. Our children will think of that. What ultimately we want is independence. And if you agree on that, you'll have lots of friends. You'll have not the same friends you were hoping to have with different ones. Regarding education, it's part of it. The international community is part of it. But good news I would say is that in 4 years we've seen France isolated. We've seen France becoming totally isolated in its corner. And that's a good news. Because before, I always remember that France and the Western world are partners fine. So as such, even if it was, condemned what is happening, it's still supporting France in other ways. But it still remains that France is isolated. And the second good news I would say, I'm talking about the international community and what we can do, is that I'm convinced that Macron is going to lose the election. And many people will think that he will win, but I'm convinced he will lose. It means one will go back to the money ball and have a new type of discussion. Now, is it possible that in the constellation of France having an election in April and May, that France will have an event in Cameroon? No. Is it possible that in the case of Central Africa, France has never intervened directly because Chad is the country that always performs the dirty job? Now, is it possible that Chad, given that Idris just died and his son overtook the position he had and is struggling to at least take power, is it possible that Chad Chad did mad in 2013-14? Is it possible? My answer is no, it is not possible. The consequence is this, it's a good news, is that the fighting you are seeing happening in Amazonia right now is the fighting that's going to happen. So the warring parties you have in front of you right now is the warring parties you are going to have for one. The dry bone you are having there is the dry bone you are going to have for one. It means the quality of your enemy is essentially there. So I'm not saying the good people or the type of ones or the clear people, if you want, having the help of France or having some type of political intervention, etc., in a year or two, because during this next year, France has an election. And Chad, who used to do the job, is also going to have an election. So it is not going to be that easy. The clarity of that situation is essential, therefore, to be able to have a political maneuver, to have a communication that will make sense. So I think I did answer the question about France, Macron, and intervention. Now, regarding what some Cameroonians can do academia. I mean, academia myself, there is a certain sense of there's something that one tends not to underestimate. It is the moral dimension of the struggle. The moral dimension of the struggle, I'll describe it this way. You see, the first pictures of 2018 coming from Amazonia were pictures of people being hunted down on the street, being chased, people running away, the government army coming in and holding people coming, shooting around, and people running to what's the disarray. But then it changed, the dynamic changed because you had a psychological backbone that was built on the fact that armed soldiers came to rescue. So it sounds very little, but people need that. You need to have a moral fortitude. And academia knows that the job of scholarship, the job of research, strengthening the historical case, strengthening the legal case, strengthening the moral case, for instance, building file around genocide, the argument of genocide, building file, having somebody who actually maps out, like I did it, answering simple questions.
Raise your phone.
Answering very simple questions. For instance, who are warring parties? Where is the fighting happening? Where is the front? How many people are killed? Let me give you an example. Until now, when it's still stuck at 3,000 people killed. And you will be surprised that one thing will not change. You have documents still saying that 3,000 people died. It is enough, certainly. Was 3,000 people here were enough for Mali to go to the ICC? It was enough. But Cameroon is not at the ICC because Cameroon is not a member of the ICC. So that is the global argument, the legal argument that scholarship can do. And that is something it needs to be done. Now, an archive of all those atrocities, I did it for a year or two, and then it blossomed. It was way too much. So one needs to invest on that to have an archive where the name, the location, and the circumstances clearly described, and it also will have the name of the people who committed those atrocities. Because at a certain moment, when we have to come back to that archive and establish the responsibility of the state, and the responsibility of the military. So far, it has squeezed itself to the full enemy. But then they will have to answer, because then they would like to shift the blame to somebody else. They will like to say, no, it's not us. But one has to pin them down on the crimes, and pin them down meaning where, when, what circumstance. That is where scholarship, scholarship is essential. And as we know, the voice of the victim is the moral piece that you have. And that is the moral piece you have to find to give the legitimate answer to the reason why you become bound. It is scholarship that does that.
Thank you, Prof. This is a very, very, very good, instructive discussion we're having today. So before I ask you my question, let us take a second set of questions. Yes.
Please, because I will leave, and as from a secretary, I can't raise my hand. I wanted to push Patrick, Professor Gana, a little bit on the question you went. And Patrick, I think, if I'm being judged, the question about France, I think it's not really answered the war in Cameroon as in the war of French African countries. It's not really understood or answered until we see the relationship between France and Cameroon, or France and its colonies. I would like you to also have to put this in context, because we are using the models today. What if it turns out that the Cameroons, so maybe the Northerners, take power tomorrow? What happens? So the argument you make in terms of the Mulus as the people who are not really valued, it's a good argument now, but that argument it's an effect rather than a cause. The cause of all of this is the French imagination in Africa. You may to see where I'm more probably as Southern Cameroonians exist in the terms of war of sovereignty, war where people talk about the graffiti or the camaraderie, or maybe the family, the common as the oneness of our people, so to speak, for some people. But the problem is, how can these people even ever think about
coexistence with the French that are guiding you, the monster that is Yahweh. So I would like to get that. But number two, and more important, I think equally important, I'd like to hear from you. How many school of thoughts are there on the French